Jay's Custom Creations is sponsored by Bits and Bits. Use the code JBates to save 10% off your next router bit or CNC bit purchase at bitsbits.com. Hey folks, how you doing? Hopefully you're all having a great day today. It's been 2 years and 3 months since I shot a shop tour video, which in the whole lifespan of a wood shop isn't really that much time, but so much has changed in 2 years and 3 months. Mainly due to my personal life. We bought a camper that has to be parked in front of that door. That door is the only door, or the only place in the property that that camper can park in, and it caused some chaos with material in, projects out as far as using these doors. So I'll get into that in just a little bit. But this is the absolute best shop layout that I've ever had. It's so efficient. And I think there's a lot of ideas that you can pull from what I'm going to show you here. If you're not familiar with me or what I do, my name is Jay. Nice to meet you. And I've been producing online woodworking content, both videos and articles from our website since the end of 2012. I started woodworking in 2008, 2009-ish, prior to that. But 2014 was the year that I was able to quit my full-time job, and I've been doing this ever since. So basically working for myself completely for almost a decade. And there's a little asterisk there. I want you to know that my work or my business is a media business. Jay's Custom Creations produces media. I don't produce anything to sell. So this is not a production shop. It's basically like hobby woodworking on steroids, basically, right? I don't produce anything to sell. I mainly just give away all my stuff. I don't want to get caught up into trying to earn, a side hustle with earning revenue from selling stuff. I want to focus on content and that type of a thing, just to stay on track. So there's a little bit of background about me. Also, I said I started woodworking in 2008. This is my fourth shop. So 2008, 2009-ish, somewhere around then, I was woodworking out of my single wide trailer. I, at 19, bought an acre of land and got this cheap trailer. And it was completely debt-free, but it was glorified camping. It was an absolute crap place to live. But that was my castle, and I was the king of my castle. And that's basically all that matters, right? A young kid with complete freedom. After that, I met my wife, and after getting married, we moved to where she was going to college, Mississippi State University, Starkville, Mississippi. I did not want to pay rent at all. After owning my own place, why pay rent somewhere else? So I got a job as doing maintenance for an apartment complex. Part of my pay was a free apartment. So that allowed me some rather strange perks. My first wood shop was really strange, single wide trailer. And then now I'm in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath apartment doing woodworking, which is really strange. My dust collector plugged into where the stove went. That's kind of odd. But it was a really, really fun space. And we were there for a few years. 2014, I was able to quit my job. And also we bought our first home. And that allowed me to move into a 2-car garage. So a 20-foot by 20-foot square, basically. And when I first moved in, so much space. I could do all kinds of stuff. You get the tool bug. You start buying this and buying that and buying this and buying that. You run out of space. I did anyway. So we started looking for a bigger shop or a house with a bigger shop. We found our current home, and this shop is in the backyard. It is a 30-foot by 40-foot pole barn, and it basically was. I came in and we studded the walls, put insulation and plywood sheathing on the walls, spray foam insulation in the roof, and mini splits on the back wall to make this a heated and cooled space. Lots of air filtration because I'm not exhausting my dirty air out. I have to breathe this stuff, so there's a lot of air filtration in here. And here I am in my mid-30s, and this is basically like my dream shop. I can't imagine a better woodworking shop for me to be in, and I'm just really, really happy with the space. I hope that's encouraging and not boastful, right? So I have no business experience prior to this business. I had no formal business training. I had no formal woodworking training. Everything that I've built with this business is from just researching free stuff online. I never paid for any online courses or any of this stuff. It's just free stuff online. So while this is a really, really nice space, and I know there's somebody going to be in the comments saying, it must be nice. It is nice, and it's really, really nice. Everything that you work really, really hard for in life should be nice. And if I can do it, you can do it too. I built this whole business and this space completely debt-free, just researching and implementing. You can do the exact same thing. So hopefully that's encouraging and not boastful. I'm going to just give you a brief 360 around the shop, and then we'll talk about the stations. Going handheld for just a second. This is the bucket pod that I use here in the shop. It's way more convenient than a tripod. But that's what I use to record. So this back wall, or this is the front wall, I guess you could say, the two main big doors, then the main, well, the only man door, a little office in the corner. This entire side of the shop is open, and that if you got the opportunity to have open space in a shop, that's an absolute must, I've found out. It's just amazing flex space. So this half is 15 foot by 40 feet, and you can see there's some stuff on the walls, so carts and whatnot, so it's not entirely wide open, but there's still a tremendous amount of space, which means my entire shop is on that side of the shop. And I've got 4 main stations. There's like the hand tool workbench station, the assembly table, table saw, bandsaw, planer station, the jointer, router table, edge sander, air cleaner cart station, and then the CNC machine. Then, of course, there's some stuff on that back wall, but the main 4 stations are open like that. Now, there's aisles to walk in between each one of these stations, and then on the back side, there's a continuous aisle from the CNC machine all the way through to this door over here. So just to give you a quick brief walkthrough here, CNC station, tool island over here, walkway, and all these walkways are large enough so that that cart right there with the blue bag on it, that cart can fit through all these to move stacks of material around, which is nice. Walking through here, and then the little hand tool working with your hands kind of a station over here. So let me put you back on the tripod or the bucket pod, and we'll talk about each station and what I was thinking developing each station. This is just a little tiny bit of wall in between the 2 main doors, and there's not much that can fit right here, but it's very convenient to have the dust collector here for a couple reasons. First, right out of a dust collector, you'll get the least amount of turbulence inside the cyclone if you can have like a 5-foot section of straight pipe. So out of the cyclone, I guess going into the cyclone, we have the main trunk of the dust collection system running through here, which is right in between the rails of the door. There's not much else you could put there, so that's kind of like the best use of space, best position for the dust collector. And then also, I keep this 2-wheel dolly and clamp right here because exiting on this side with the barrel is right next to the doors, so it's really convenient. When I first moved in here, I don't know why I did it, but I put the dust collector in the opposite corner of the door. I don't really understand why I did that, because then you have to track that whole barrel all the way out, and as soon as you know that you have to dump the dust collection barrel, it's basically got too much in it. So when you take the barrel out and it's full and needs to be dumped, well, as soon as you tip it, it's going to knock out some dust everywhere. So when it was in the back corner, I was emptying the dust bin, but I was putting dust throughout the whole shop in doing so. Anyway, that's a good use of that space. I got an air compressor right here that feeds into a 50-foot cord drop, which I'll show you in just a second, or hose drop. That's been a handy addition. And on that back wall over there is a bunch of stuff that I need to process. I need to get through some of this stuff. And it's kind of purposefully in my way. Like, that's always going to be right there. Not necessarily in my way, but front and center. Like, hey, do something with me. Previously, I was storing it by my lumber rack, stacks of cutting boards and whatnot, and I'd forget about them. They'd sit there forever. But it's really handy to have cutting boards specifically done and ready to go at a moment's notice, because there's a lot of times where somebody passes away or some event just unexpectedly pops up, and it's handy to have a gift to give away. And that's what I keep these cutting boards on hand for. So I've got a bunch of stuff over there. Going this way, this is now the main material in, material outdoor, because the camper has to be parked right in front of there. So that's why this side is still wide open. Material in, material out. There's my office computer. Like I said, this wall is empty. and I like it empty. That's my little audio, video, media battery charging station, plus where the internet comes in. Keep going this way, and on this wall is lumber storage in the back and just a bunch of carts and random stuff. This is stuff that doesn't get used all the time, like my pocket hole machine and a panto router, but it's stuff that does get used, so I can't get rid of it, and it needs to be on carts to where I can move it around and use it as needed. Also, I have no problems whatsoever moving these once or twice to get material for a project and moving them back into place. I'd rather these carts and everything over here that's on wheels temporarily block the lumber rather than permanently take up space elsewhere when it's not even being used. So that's why, oh gosh, this wide angle lens makes it look like I'm in a airport hangar or something. And then my finishing supply cabinet, a little bookshelf for random storage. This is the CNC cart. So this is the computer tethered to the CNC machine. This is an Avid CNC machine. This is a 4-foot by 10-foot, which is not a typical size, but with this Avid CNC platform, everything's basically modular. So you don't necessarily have to go with what some person's going to say is standard. You can basically get whatever size you want, and they will they're modular, so you can grow if needed. The laptop cart is what controls basically the CNC machine. It has to be on wheels so that the elevator can come down. I built an elevator in this shop, and you can see the tracks of it right here. It comes down over this chalkboard and flag, and I white outlined where it is on the floor. That way I don't stand under it when you're lowering it. But then again, you're not an idiot. You can see something coming down, you can move. Anyway, so there's that. The whole CNC station. CNC is awesome. Let's scoot around a little bit right here, and we'll talk about this space in between where they kind of flow. So there's one change that I do want to make, and that is to move this floor sweep. I've already disconnected it right here and then moved this entire piece into the corner to make sure it'll fit, and it definitely will, so I just need to buy another section of pipe. One section of pipe, some clamps, and a 45 is like $350. This piping is awesome, but it's expensive, and it kind of sucks in that regard. This, I'll throw it out there real quick, this dust collection pipe, this metal pipe, is NordFab, and I wish I would have found out about California Air Systems first, because a friend of mine used California Air Systems, and he said it was way cheaper, and it's basically the same thing. So there's that. But I want to move the floor sweep into the corner because this is all of my dust is not vented outside. I have to collect it and filter it out so this space is easy to breathe in. And I found that it's very easy to clean the shop completely with compressed air. Now think of a dust collection versus a shop vac, right? A shop vac is a very isolated suction to really remove something in a very specific area. Dust collection is to create a large draft of air so that the ambient dust is removed, but not necessarily to suck the dust out of one specific location. Same thing in reverse with a leaf blower and compressed air. So I was using a leaf blower to blow all the dust over to the floor sweep and clean up the shop, but a leaf blower is this big, large volume of air that just pulls the dust up and just leaves it suspended in the air, and then it settles on top of everything. Compressed air is just an isolated shot right at one specific spot, and it's not a high volume of air, so it's just going to move it, and then the dust will fall. So I use compressed air to blow the shop to this floor sweep. It would be better and more efficient if that floor sweep was in the corner. That way the entire shop is just blown into a corner and then sucked up. That's the end goal. I just haven't gotten there quite yet. On this side is a horizontal edge sander, and my thought with it is the stuff that produces the most dust needs to be near the floor sweep over there. So this is a edge sander. This little guy right here, what's this thing called? It's got a very specific name, but it's basically a secondary dust catch for me. I'll move some hoses down there, and then this tucks in right close to this. So that way, if I'm doing a lot of sanding operations, I've got the floor sweep over there for the dust that falls on the floor, but I've got the factory dust collection as well as some supplemental dust collection, and it's not bad. I won't go through the process of setting this up if I'm just doing 1 or 2 pieces, but if I'm doing a bunch of stuff, then I'll definitely set this up and take advantage of the extra dust collection. Over here, oh, also, on this particular dust collection port, I've got the Rockler Dust Right Quick Connect thing, and this is great for cleaning off stuff on top of the CNC machine, cleaning off these stations over here. This is the only one that I'm down to here in the shop. I used to have a couple of these in the shop. They're really handy, especially if you use the sweep attachment to sweep the floor. But I only have one now. This is the only spot where it really makes sense to use it. And now that I have some nice compressed air, I don't really need to vacuum the floor as much. So let's move a little bit further. This back wall at the end. Oh, let me back up actually. This air cleaner cart right here. This is a squirrel cage blower on the bottom, blows air up at like a 45-degree angle. So it filters the air, and if you put it in a situation or position, as it is right now, it'll create a circular draft around the shop. But also because it's blowing up, it also creates a top-down draft. And this filters air really, really well. On this shelf way back there, I'll show you, is Dylos air quality monitor. And I monitor the air quality because it is not exhausted outside, and I got to breathe this crap in. And I'll show you how much that really, really works. Coming over here is the, let's go to the back wall first. So this is just drill press. Again, a drill press creates a tremendous amount of mess, so I want it to be close to the floor sweep. This router table sometimes throws a bunch of chips all over the place, so it being close to the floor sweep is handy as well. This grinder produces all kinds of metal dust, so next to the floor sweep is handy. And of course, if the floor, or when the floor sweep goes over to that corner, this is just in the path of blowing the crap that way anyway. Squares, long stuff on the wall, nothing fancy there. Ladder storage, square storage behind that. Nothing fancy there. That's where the miter saw station starts. Coming over here, one of the last tools in this island. This is a Rockler cast iron top router table cabinet, and it's actually pretty cool. The only thing I don't like about it is there's no clean air for the router. The router goes into a box, and then you have dust collection on the back of it, so you're basically sucking in clean air from the top, and it has to go the opposite direction through the router or circulate dirty air, and then it goes in the back. So I wish that the router itself had some clean air intake adapter of some kind, but it doesn't. No problems out of it, but there's that. That's a pretty cool little cabinet setup, little router table setup. On this side is a Oliver 12-inch jointer, and this was a recent change for me. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. This is a recent change for me. In my last shop, where space was a premium, I got a combination jointer planer machine, and that was really nice. Fantastic machine. It was a Hammer A341. Fantastic machine. A friend of mine was asking to buy it, and then 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 asking to buy it, and eventually he caught me in the right day because I said, okay, I'll sell it to you. So I added a little bit more money and got a dedicated 12-inch jointer and dedicated 15-inch planer, both with a helical head, carbide insert, cutter head. I really like this, and then also switching back and forth on the combination machine was just a bear. Not necessarily because it takes much time, but it just got so frustrating because of me. I've gotten so scatterbrained to where I'm switching back and forth, jointer and planer combo, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, 5, 6, 7, 8 times per project because of just stupid stuff. And then every time you switch, you lose your height setting. So on the planer anyway. I went with these two machines. So far, I haven't had this too long. So far, I really, really like this. There's 2 things on this exact machine that I wish every manufacturer would implement on their stationary machines. And that's number 1, a way to turn the machine off without your hands. You're working with your hands with woodworking tools. It makes sense for every machine to be able to be turned off without your hands. So, on the saw stop, you use your thigh to hit the off paddle. That type of a thing. I wish every machine had that. And then also on this machine, you can't see it from this orientation. Can you see the other one? You can kind of see the other one. This red back in there. I'll show you a different picture. But there's lifting hooks already bolted to the machine. So if you have to move this thing, you know exactly where to put straps to where it's not going to mess the calibration or anything. It's a dedicated lifting strap. Or lifting hook. I think that's just makes so much sense. If not a hook, then maybe just a single D-ring or something, 2 D-rings. It just makes so much sense to have these on here. So yeah, there's that. I'm happy with that. On this side, let me move you over here. This side is where the next tool island starts. This is the main tool island, obviously. So we have an assembly table here, and I got tired of the assembly table walking around a little bit because this is based upon the Ron Polk design. So this is a Ron Polk assembly table, or the Polk table, that is slightly modified, not much, but slightly modified. The bases are a little bit different, and I've tried to take a portable design and make it stationary. And there's some things that aren't as stable in a portable design. So I was tired of this walking around. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's a piece of hardwood, or a piece of wood in between the table saw and the end rail back there. And on that, I screwed it to the table saw so that way I can screw this to that wood. And now this is firmly connected to the table saw. So this is good enough to put, you know, dogs in here and plain lumber on. It's a hollow structure, so it's not good to chisel on, but it's not going anywhere. So I really like that little change that I made. This planer is a 15-inch wide planer, and it's got unobstructed in-feed and out-feed, so you can put an 8-foot board in there. But if not, it's got one of the best mobile bases, factory mobile bases that I've ever used, which is really, really, really nice. Let me slide you around to this side so you can see the dust collection stuff, because that's interesting, I think. Every single machine has what I call dead space. It's necessary space that needs to be taken up, but you don't physically move in it, so I call it dead space. For example, this planer, you have to allocate some space to this side because that's where the dust collection fitting is going, and access to the belts and all this stuff if needed. But that's side where you're not going to be working on, so that's what I call dead space. This bandsaw, on this side of the bandsaw is dead space. You're not going to be working on this side. You're really not going to be working over here. And then the table saw, you're not going to be working on the right side of the table saw, so that's basically dead space. Nest all those together and drop a dust collection pipe right in the middle of it. That way you have everything as tight of a space as possible without losing any function, right? The bandsaw does not interrupt the in-feed and out-feed of this planer. The planer, because the heights are different here, does not interrupt the in-feed or out-feed of the bandsaw. And the bandsaw, let me slide you over here, the height of the table on the bandsaw is higher than the height of the table on the table saw. So I can move the fence all the way up to 52 inches, and if I need to cut a piece of plywood that long, I can still fit it underneath here. Everything just still fits. Nothing is obstructed, and it's not goofy either. Everything fits just the way it should, maximizing the amount of usable space around the machine while minimizing the footprint that each one of these 3 machines takes up for dead space. So that's like the most efficient use of that space over here. And the blast gates are super easy and readily accessed, right? Super easy to access. This one is for the bandsaw over there. And then this one over here, which I would access on that side, is for the planer and table saw together. All of my dust collection, the main trunks are 6-inch runs, and I have a 6-inch blast gate that always controls the flow of air to either 2 4-inch ports or a single 6. I don't have any 4-inch blast gates, and that's because I was reading up a lot on dust collection and whatnot, and cyclones work with centrifugal force to separate particles. And if you cut off the air supply to the cyclone by having such a reduced amount of air flow, like this big dust collector, if you choke this down to a single 4-inch port, you're greatly reducing the oh, I'm an idiot. That's a normal handle. You're greatly reducing the amount of airflow into the cyclone, therefore reducing the centrifugal force to separate the dust from the air, and therefore you reduce the efficiency of the separation. So I want to have at the very least, 2 4-inch ports open. Therefore, I have 6-inch blast gates on everything, controlling a minimum of 2 4-inch ports. There's that. Let me move you around over here. Underneath the table saw is just miscellaneous storage. I've never built a cabinet or anything that needs to go underneath there. My sleds, I've always just tossed them next to the saw. That's fine. Let's come over here and go up a little bit for dust collection. So there's a couple blast gates that I can't reach. I'm short anyway. I'm only 5'6", but even if I was a little bit taller, maybe I could reach that, but I can't. So I have sticks with magnets taped to the end of them, and that's fine. I can use the stick to open up the port to go to the miter saw station. Strong magnet. Use the stick to close it, and then just leave it up there. Now, why put the blast gate over here rather than way over there where the miter saw station is? The reason being is any time that you can get away with moving the blast gate closer to the main trunk here, that means that entire section of pipe is not going to be pressurized, not going to be straining the system if it's not going to be used. So the blast gate is over here. I'm totally okay with that because normally I'm over here flipping the table saw blast gate the most. So let's just say I just cross-cut something at the miter saw station, which means that blast gate's open. So while I'm over here shutting that one, I'm at the same location to open this one for the table saw or something like that. So up high is no concern whatsoever. Just use a stick. No big deal at all. Let me move you over here a little bit. And now we have the actual work area. I have this particular, let me just move over here. I have this workbench that I built in 2016. It's a Southern Yellow Pine workbench that works out really, really good. And also, I added or moved this traditional workhorse over here. This is like a portable workbench. What really makes it awesome is it breaks down. My floor is not level. It breaks down so the legs come out, the bottom shelf comes off, and then you have 4 pieces to transport. The top section, the 2 leg assemblies, and then the shelf. You can throw it in the back seat of a car. There's a lot of work holding options here with this long twin screw vise on the front, some bench dogs with horizontal screw, some regular bench dogs, and then these end stops here at the end. And there's holes on the front on my side. You can't see it, but there's horizontal holes this way for this particular clamp and whatever. There's a lot of work holding options with this thing. That's awesome. The downside is it's pretty light. So if you want to do some like heavy planing on it, it's going to move around on you. But this isn't meant to like replace a workbench. This is meant to be portable. And this is basically handy for another section of, or another vise when this is full of other stuff. But also, I'm probably going to take this camping with me. That way I can do a little bit of woodworking on the road. That would be a lot of fun. And this is the perfect little workbench to take with me camping. My normal workbench, love this thing with my cabinet down below. A mechanic's tool chest for all of my mechanical tools, as well as like plumbing and electrical for household type stuff. It's handy to have that right next to the workbench because while this is a traditional woodworking workbench, I abuse the crap out of it with basically everything. I'll put greasy automotive parts up here, bang out bushings. I've done that. I've hammered out bushings on here. So using a metal sledgehammer on a metal part on a wooden workbench, denting it all up, totally fine with me. It's a workbench. Use it, right? And having all my tools right here, allowing quick access to all that, really, really handy. I just moved my clamp rack over here. I've got to do something with clamps. I've been saying for years that I don't have enough clamps. You know, the old woodworking joke, woodworkers never have enough clamps. You can never have too many clamps. I've been breaking some here and there, and the supply has been dwindling down. Anyway, I got to do something with the clamps. And when I do, I'm probably going to make some type of rolling cart. That way I can move all the clamps to the bigger item, because I typically make bigger things nowadays, and then use the clamps as needed. And then when the time comes to remove all those clamps, I can roll that cart to it and then just put them right onto the cart. I think that's the route that I'm going to go. Yeah, that's it with that station. And then I'll spin you around over here, and we can see my miter saw station. If you're not familiar with this miter saw station, I designed this station, excuse me, in my 2-car garage. And when I designed it so that it went into a corner over here. So this was a wall right here. So that's why it stops with no cabinets down below. I had to add a little bit of, did I add bracing? It's just floating. Oh, that's what it was. I increased the amount of screws tremendously between this cabinet that's attached to the wall and this bottom shelf. So it's kind of like a cantilevered force, but it hasn't sagged any at all. And it allows me a spot to put my trash can down below. When I initially designed this, like I said, I went into a corner over there, and I designed this empty space down here for an air compressor, and then one more empty space right here for a trash can. I've always used this trash can for my burn-only wood scraps, so wood-only scraps, not actual trash. In this case, that one's for trash, this one's for burn-only. We have a really nice outdoor fire pit, so that's where all my scraps end up going, is starting fires over there. Excuse me. The whole point of this miter saw station was not to have the miter saw in it. Well, I'm saying that wasn't the main criteria. The main criteria was like a wall of storage that just so happened to have a miter saw in it. So I was mainly trying to solve a storage problem more so than a tool location problem. Ended up being a really, really nice miter saw station. I have a T-track right here for a ruler and a stop block. However, when I moved it to this location, I ripped the ruler off and really messed up this piece of plywood. So I have to rebuild this piece of plywood where the T-track's in. And then once you calibrate the stop block to the scale, it's awesome and it's repeatable. The only downside is this wore out miter saw. This is an old rigid 12-inch sliding compound miter saw. I love this saw mainly because dust collection and the power that it has. I've tried 2 other miter saws in this situation, and I've always gone back to this worn out one because dust collection is just, I don't understand it. It's gotten worse and worse on the newer saws. I think so anyway. So this one, it's got a nice 6-inch drop of dust collection into this enclosed box. Dust collection is great with this saw. This saw doesn't spray dust in the front like the Milwaukee saw that I tried. And there's another one that I can't remember the name of, but anyway, basically a tool wall station. I just jotted down 5 suggestions that I can give you to hopefully make your shop space a little bit better, or if you're about to build a shop space. Number 1, air filtration. Focus on air filtration a little bit more than normal if you are in a situation where you have to circulate the same air over and over again. You're in a basement, you're in a 2-car garage that the door stays shut in because you have a mini split in there or something like that. I have this space heated and cooled, so I'm not going to exhaust air out and then have makeup air come in and then the mini splits have to work harder. I'd rather spend more effort on filtering the air that's already in here. So I've got the dust collector. That's going to take care of the main offenders, right? No matter what, you're still going to have some stuff that's thrown up in the air, table saw, bandsaw, whatever. So, or even if you're using like a circular saw or a jigsaw over here, you're going to create airborne dust. So for that type of stuff, I've already mentioned I have that air filter cart, air cleaner cart, and that cleans the air really, really well, and it moves a lot of air fast because it uses a squirrel cage type blower out of a residential HVAC unit. So it's a used unit that I put in there, used fan that I put in there. That works really, really well. But also on the back wall, excuse me, the 3 mini split head units that I have mounted on the inside of the shop, I have a box over the top of all of them, and each one of those boxes has 4 20 by 20 inch filters, so they're continuously filtering the air as well. How do I know that the air is actually filtered after making this stuff? Well, you got to measure it somehow. This is a Dylos air quality monitor. Excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied. And it has a large particulate and a small particulate reading. I'll take it outside on a beautiful sunny day where I have no indication that there's bad air outside, bad air quality outside. Get a baseline reading, compare those to what it is here in the shop. And it is almost always, just walking in the shop without doing any work, it's almost always cleaner air in the shop than it is outside. Once I turn that air cleaner cart on, it stays clean in here until you do some heavy type woodworking without dust collection or something to stir up a lot of dust. This is always in the single digits for the high and low particulate numbers. And I don't recall exactly what the last one was outside, but outside was triple digits last time I took it out there. So I know that the air in the shop is cleaner than it is outside. And when I'm blowing the shop to the corner to the floor sweep to clean it up, I'll put a respirator on because this thing spikes in the thousands. So you really get an idea of how nasty the air is when you're cleaning your space. I used to clean my space with an air cleaner, with a compressed air leaf blower without a respirator until I started seeing these numbers. And holy smokes, it obviously makes bad air quality because you're stirring it up. But I didn't realize how bad it actually was. So air filtration, focus on that if you haven't already done so. My second recommendation is to kind of visualize your workflow in your shop as a wheel. All of your stations around the perimeter, all connecting to a center hub, which in my case is this assembly table. If you have an unobstructed path from the assembly table to every one of your stations, it's just going to be easier to move stuff around because you basically never go from the jointer directly to the planer, from the table saw directly to whatever else. You typically have some type of intermediate station. You're running pieces through the jointer and planer, whichever one it is, and you're setting the pieces off onto another horizontal surface before going to the next station. So this assembly table is my center hub, direct path to my workbench, direct path to the table saw, to that router table, to the planer, to the jointer, to the router table, to the, what is that? That's a drill press, to the miter saw station. The only two tools that don't have a direct path to this table is the bandsaw and edge sander, and that's basically what I'm left with packing as much stuff around here. Center hub is the assembly table. Everything else is a direct shot to it. Suggestion number 3 is something that I've already mentioned, and that is nest together, overlap together all of the dead space that these machines have. The non-operator side of the planer, the left-hand side of the bandsaw, the right-hand side of the table saw. These 3 tools fit so well together right here. But it's not just this particular tool island. I did the same thing over here. This jointer, it's a 12-inch jointer. It's a nice size jointer, but it's not that ridiculously wide. The reason why I have to allocate the space back here is for the jointer fence rail. It actually is about a ½ inch to an inch away from this over here. So it takes up a tremendous amount of space. It can't simply just be pushed up against the wall. Same thing with that edge sander. Same thing with this router table. All the dust collection hoses exit the back side of this cabinet, so I couldn't put this up against the wall even if I wanted to. So you have this natural cavity with these 3 machines. Drop your dust collection, drop your electrical. It's all nice and tidy, hidden out of the way. And then also these 3 machines is another example of them nesting together and not interfering with one another. These tables are at different heights, so no matter what I do on top of this, or as I'm using the router tabletop, this jointer bed is not going to interfere with it because it's lower. This is positioned just perfectly so that at maximum width of the jointer, I can run pieces up against the jointer fence and it's not going to hit the router table at all. All these tools play well with one another, just stacking elevations and again, combining the dead space so I don't have to allocate a bunch of space 3 different times for these 3 different machines. Suggestion number 4 is kind of a no-brainer suggestion, but if you have a dust collector, consider adding a floor sweep. It is so handy to just either sweep or blow all the dust into one location rather than sweeping up piles with a dust bin, dustpan, and a broom. As you can see, I still need to move mine back to the corner like I mentioned because stuff just blows past it and I have not cleaned out from underneath the CNC machine. So that's going to be continuously piling up until I move this over there. If you have a dust collector, add a floor sweep. Suggestion number 5 is kind of a loaded suggestion because I understand not all shop spaces are identical and not everyone has the same amount of space. But whatever space you have, if you have some type of flex space or assembly space, some type of open space, try your best to prioritize that space and maintain it. Because if you don't have a flex space, then anything that you want to put in something like this is going to go in the workspace. The more you can keep your flex space wide open and clear of clutter and clear of stuff, the less likely you are going to clutter up your work area. If you don't have a space dedicated to offloading lumber or cabinet number 3 when you've got 4 more cabinets over there to build, then what you're going to do is start cluttering up your work environment. And the more cluttered your work environment is, the less enjoyable it'll be in that space, because you're going to be frustrated moving crap around constantly. Stuff's going to be in your way. It's just not as fun. So keep a space clear so that you have space to put stuff when the shop space gets a little bit busy, we'll say. That's basically it for this shop tour. Now, this wide angle lens, like I said, really does this shop justice. It's a nice large space, but it looks massive with this wide angle lens. So keep that in mind. I've already completed 3 large projects in this space since moving everything around. And I can confirm that the workflow in here is great. It's just kind of fluid. You're never really being frustrated to move this, to work on that. Everything seems to work very well with everything else going on here in the shop. So hopefully you found a little bit of inspiration or information in this video. If you want to see more shop tours, not from just me, but from other people, I've got a bunch on my website. And if you'd like to submit a shop tour on my website, just contact me and I'll let you know what to do and we'll put your shop on there. It's just really awesome seeing other people's spaces and seeing how they solve problems. Oh, you thought of something that I never would have thought of. That's a really good idea. I really like watching and seeing other people's shops evolve. So that's it for this video. You go to my website, jayscustomcreations.com/newsletter to sign up for my email newsletter. You'll never miss anything that I publish that way. You guys take care. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next video.